Hey guys, today I'm going to try to explain interest rate as simple as possible so that even my youngest son can understand what the hell I'm talking about. This will be a quick video, hopefully it'll be quick. I do have a couple tabs up in regards to interest rate, good and bad, uh, obviously. So I want to first start off with my car currently. I bought for a brand new car, which was one of the things that I normally don't do, but because I had my third kid, we needed a minivan. And, being a parent for the first time with that many kids, I wanted to be safe, better safe than sorry. So we bought a new minivan. The good thing about this was that it was 0% interest. That means I put down a down payment and my monthly payment, every payment I'm making is going straight towards the principal of paying off that car. And I'm left with maybe a few payments now. We've had it for that close to that 5-year mark. So it was never an urgency to pay off that car because there was no interest on it. Now, on the flip side to that, we do use our credit card ever so often when we're making purchases because I'm not going to walk around with a load of cash in my wallet whenever time I go to the supermarket, or neither is my wife. So credit cards, on the other hand, usually charges a high, ridiculous amount of interest on purchases because when you make purchases with credit card, it's backed by insurance, it's backed by fraud, protection, and all that other stuff. The difference between buying something with a credit card with a high interest, which normally it has an introductory because that's how they suck you in the beginning for the first 12 months. It has a high interest because things that you purchase or things that people purchase with it, the banks are not going to want it back. Meaning Visa, MasterCard, American Express is not going to want whatever clothes you bought or whatever underwear you bought. Certain things, okay? That's why normally people don't buy cars with their credit card. Car dealerships and all that have their own loan system. And that's how they're able to offer such low rates on interest, because cars, on the other hand, is something the banks can take back and has a resale value. If I bought an iPad now and, a year later and I'm paying and I can't make these payments anymore, the bank is not going to want an outdated iPad or a laptop or a refrigerator or a stove that you made these purchases on. They can, but most likely they will not because it just has no value to it. So that's why credit card interest is so high. And then, like I said, on the flip side, car dealerships and car financing is lower, close to zero sometimes, introduction rates or whatever. But lower, like to the point of 2-3%, is because it has a value to it. So now we get into the bigger picture, like houses, right? So houses, I just have a couple website up, and it's not really anything. It explains interest, but I was trying to explain it to so that a kid could even understand. To the point where I even taught myself, like, oh, okay, so that makes a lot more sense now. So houses, on the other hand, right now we are at a all-time low of interest loan from the banks, right? We're probably a little under 3% for a single-family home and, as a primary residence. And that means every dollar that you have, right? Every dollar that you spend, you're paying back at 3% or whatever is only 30 cents on the dollar, which is very, very low for our time right now. And so that's why people are so eager to buy a house. But on the flip side of that, it's then we get into a different story. Like, there's not a lot of houses for sale, but at the same time, the housing prices go up because it's so more affordable when the interest is low. I remember this has always stuck in my head, and this is just an example. Back in the 1980s, interest for buying a house, a mortgage, was way, way over 8%. And that was extreme. And I recall my grandparents buying their first home for the whole entire family. It was a multifamily. And they paid cash out front, all of it, because they did the calculation that if they bought this house, even though it was cheaper then, but of course, with inflation, it's equivalent, right? So money is money still. Interest was over 8%. So, each month they would have to pay their mortgage with this 8% interest and so on and so forth, and they'll carry on for 30 years. So with just paying the interest, it will cost more than what the house was worth back then. Obviously, pricing of the houses went up throughout the course of the years, but they saved a lot because they paid it all in upfront without having to accrue any interest, nothing, right? And same goes for your credit card. When you make a purchase with your credit card, at the end of each statement, at the end of the month, you want to do your best to pay off or all of your expenses, all your charges, because you don't want that interest to accrue and then add on to the next month and the next month and the next month, because then you're just paying more money for an interest back to the banks. And so the item that you purchase is costing a lot more than what it was really retailed for. So not only do you pay taxes and the product, and then now you're paying interest on top of it. So I would recommend, if you can't or do not need it if it's not a necessity and it's just something you want and you charge it and you're paying it back, each month, for the next half a year, for the next 6 months, and you're paying like 10, 15, 18, 20% interest on these credit cards. I mean, that's a lot of money going out the door. That's not what the product is worth, right? So have to be very careful with that. So interest, in short, is, it could be good and bad, right? So when you buy something with 0% interest or very low interest to the dollar, you have an advantage, but at the same time, it's still your money. So in short, I hope that kind of clarifies, even for my kids to understand. Obviously learning about interest is very, very crucial as you grow up. I mean, it just makes sense that, but on the flip side, if you're in the stock market and you're buying into a stock and it has a certain percentage of return each year, meaning it adds on to the value of the stock or the dividend, then that's a good thing, right? But nothing ever compares to credit card interest, because that's just extreme. But on the stock market side, let's just say you buy McDonald's and it has a 3% return each year, and on the dividend side, or whatever the case is, right? I'm just using that as an example. I'm not using real numbers. It's just fictitious numbers. 3% on your dollar, right? So every dollar that you invest, you get 3% back. So you get 30 cents back on the dollar. So that's $1.30, and that $1.30 each year becomes another 3%, and then from there it keeps on compounding. That's good interest. That's awesome interest, right? Because you're adding money to it. At the same time, it's like when you put your money into a savings account or a checking account, do not have any interest whatsoever. Not that I know of, at least. Maybe there are a few, but I know savings account, maybe now banks are offering not what they used to offer. And I hear all these stories back then when my grandparents used to tell me, when my parents used to tell me, bank checking accounts used to offer 7% to the dollar if you put your money in the banks. But now I think it's like 1%, or even not even. I want to take that back. Maybe like 0.5%. So if you have $100 and you put it into your checking account, you'll get 0.5%. But by the time you make enough money for it to even be more than what you put in, like that $100, for it to be like $101 or $105, you have to start thinking about, and then we get into inflation, which is a whole different story, right? So right now we're just focusing on interest. So your goal as an individual, as an investor, and trying to build wealth is to find things that will compound in a positive interest, meaning for something for you to invest in, and it has a decent return or a high return, and your interest is working. So in short, that's pretty much what my explanation and interest is. I have a link on teaching how you explain interest to kids. But I think that, for me to explain interest is something that's something I learned throughout the course of time. You just learn about interest. what was good and what was bad. But when I was first growing up and when I first got my first credit card, I didn't think about anything. I just thought I had free money, and I started charging. And then you realize that I'm making minimum payments, but my interest is catching up, and the minimum payment is not even making a dent in the balance that I owe. And it wasn't until you start putting a bigger percentage of the payments besides the minimum recommended, because you'll be dragging it on for years until you pay off whatever amount that you owe. So very, very crucial. Make sure that your credit cards, your interest is, what that is, because if you can't make that full payment, that every dollar is going to be has an interest to that, meaning the 18% or 20%, whatever percentage your credit card charges for every dollar that you owe is going to be added on to that, and then you're going to have to pay it the next month and the next month and the next month every time you don't make that full payment. So that, in short, is my explanation of what interest is. There's good and there's bad, right? So you want to stay on the good side. Thank you guys. See you again soon. Bye.